So in the pilot episode, there's a quote from Tony where he talks about riding the line between techno thriller and workplace comedy.
Yep.
Is that the tone that you're shooting for with this?
Absolutely.
And how did you settle on that tone?
I mean, I think those are the two really, as the story kind of moves forward and we travel with them from the workplace, it really is kind of a combination of techno thriller and romantic comedy. And that was just incredibly fun because they're both incredibly competent former agents. They're both incredibly good at what they're good at, everything to do with investigation, to shooting, to fighting, but also they're incredibly attached to each other emotionally in a complicated way, and they're both agree that the most important thing in their lives is their daughter. But often they don't agree on the best way to raise her. So you had really the pieces of both. And I take very little credit for that. A lot of that was baked into the DNA of NCIS, particularly once they became a non-couple.
I'm a journalist from the Netherlands, and NCIS has been going on as well for like 20 years in our country.
Sorry.
No worries. So it has been a TV giant for years.
Yeah.
And in your view, what's the key to its enduring success?
Family. Family. It's really a brilliantly designed, and I all credit to Don Belisario and Don McGill, who created the original show, that they I think early on discovered the formula is make us love these characters, make them love each other, give them the kind of conflicts that families have, and then have something blow up that they have to figure out why it blew up. And make sure that if a character is in danger, all the other characters really care about making sure that person is safe. It's just really well designed storytelling. And I wasn't gonna the only thing I changed was I felt it was time after 20 some years, and Michael and Cody agreed that rather than telling a procedural case of a week, that we do a 10-hour movie with a single plot. And I really am grateful to CBS and Paramount Plus for never once questioning that. They never said, could it be like 3 episodes, they solved that, and the next 3 they solved that, and it was I had full support, which I was very, very grateful for.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to ask, what is the most challenging, more or less in the same line, what is the most challenging of keep working with such established brands, but audience know what they want to see?
I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever. Well, I did The Fugitive, which was a well-known property, and that was challenging in a similar way. And that you want to keep what works and what you think is makes it unique, but at the same time you want to also be willing to bring your own thoughts and your own obsessions, your own peccadillos. So that because if the writing is not personal, then it's not. I don't think it's good. I think it's bland. So I was lucky because I was really able to emotionally get on the same page with them. I'm a father. If my daughter was threatened, or I actually have a son who's probably would kick that person's ass because he's 6'2" and he's a big guy. But if I really channeled the part of me that because early on Tali's in danger, and they both rally to the cause of making sure she's safe. That was really easy for me to imagine that, and really easy for Cody and Michael, who are both parents, to play. And that became more than the plot of 9.4, which is the plot. The story is how do you keep the family together when they're sort of shattered, and they're all moving in different directions for a while. Does that answer your question? I'm not sure I did. Yeah.
Thank you.
I heard you talking that you wrote the pilot episode in 2022.
Yeah.
Was it something that Paramount and CBS came to you for, or was it a fan request, or was it just
No, it was all Michael. It was all Michael. We had been developing a different show together, a mini-series for Paramount Plus that did not go forward for a lot of things don't go forward. And literally on the day we were told the bad news, like, we're not going to move forward with this project, and Michael's also a producer, so they told us both in a Zoom. We, ended the Zoom. My phone rang. Literally, 4 seconds later, it was Michael. He goes, "Well, we're doing Tony and Ziva." I'm like, "We are?" He said, "Well, what do you think of the idea?" I go, "I think if we can shoot it in Europe and they'll give us enough money, yeah, we should do it." And he goes, "So you're in?" I go, "I'm in. Can you get Cody?" He's like, "She's already in." I never met Cody, so this is all Michael working Cody, working me, working Paramount. And it was actually a harder process than I would have imagined getting a green light, because we were still kind of coming out of the pandemic, and a lot of shows, especially shows shooting in Europe, were under much stricter guidelines well through 2023. It was also going to be a big show. It would not have what we call standing sets. It was going to be shot on the run, on the road. So it was a little bit of like an ongoing dialogue from 2022, and then the writer's strike hit, and that's 6 months gone. But I would say it was probably the strikes for actors and writers ended in October of 23, and they just started getting these phone calls like, "What do you think of Hungary? And what do you think of Budapest? And Michael and Cody, should we call their agents?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And they're like, "Oh, you've been greenlit. We're going to make the show." I'm like, "Nobody told you?" I'm like, "Who are you?" And it was the head of production, who just assumed that I'd been told. Because it was assumed that this is just a fait accompli. This would be good for the company, good for the franchise. They liked the script okay. I had done a kind of a rough outline of where it would go. And it was like this thing that had been sort of stuck a bit just suddenly was freed. And that's how TV and movies work. You never know. It's actually, I have a good friend, Sarah Gamble, who says it's all astrological. It's all up to the stars. I'll let her know. A lot of it is out of your control, and you have to accept that. Do the best work you can do, hand in the script, wait to get feedback, and sometimes the feedback is, "We're not making this miniseries, but yes, we'll make NCIS."
So Tony and Ziva have this on again, off again, never again relationship.
Yes.
How did you go about deciding what state their relationship would be in for this?
Well, I started with the last group of episodes that they were in together. Then the last group of episodes where Tony was alone but discovered he had a daughter and that she was dead. And then the last bunch of episodes where he discovers she's alive. And even though they're not on screen together, it's huge news to him. Who's now, at that point, he was in Paris raising Tali when he finds out she's alive. And the last images of her leaving NCIS, getting in the elevator, this is in 2016, and the doors closed. So, no, I'm sorry, it was 2020, pardon me. So I did know that we were going to have to, at some point during the first episode, show what it was like emotionally when she got off the plane in Paris and was reunited with her daughter and with Tony. And that was like the starting point. And then I just sort of worked it out from there.
Okay. Well, the show touches on themes of surveillance and cybersecurity, of course.
It does.
Topics that feel very real in today's world. How consciously did you weave that into the story, and how did you see it reflecting the global current
Honestly, I didn't
landscape?
think about that. I just wanted a cool MacGuffin. And I'm not a very technological person, but fortunately the writing staff that was hired once the show was greenlit, all of them were like major computer enthusiasts and digital enthusiasts. And I got a lot of schooling. A lot of things were changed in my pilot script because the writers were like, "That doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that." Like, no, that's impossible. Or, that's like 1999. We do other things now. So I was really fortunate to just have other writers who really were politely confrontational, and then who also then added their own. And it just sort of grew. You know, as we started to realize that there were going to be components that involved Interpol, that involved AI, that involved drone warfare. I think you live in the world and you watch those Ukraine videos. I mean, and you see what drones are capable of. It's both, depending on which side of the conflict you're on, it's either the greatest thing that's ever happened or it's horrifying. You know, drones have changed the balance of power. I mean, a $12 drone can do as much damage as an ICBM. And we all thought that was an interesting thing to just kind of weave in. And then what characters grow out of that? What does the villain want? Who is the villain? That's a huge question in the first 5. We don't know who the villain is. We know it's one of several people. But who stands to gain the most from both robbing Interpol of 135 million euros and, you know, beginning to dabble in very dangerous high-tech weaponry? And all of it's blamed on Tony and Ziva. All of it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.